Well, good evening, everyone. I hope I did this right. Let's see if I got it right. So, good evening. Welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and, well, everybody else. Okay, cool. I see people in the chat. It's all that matters. All right, we're here. All right, let's do it. Well, it's the Gold Goats and Guns Hour. It is Tuesday. It's November 30th. It's 2021. My name's Solomon Wanga. We have a lot to talk about. Let's do it. Taco Tuesday with Sam. All right, that sounds good. All right, so everything looks good. We have a relatively stable stream because everybody else is downstairs watching Mary Poppins and I'm up here doing my thing. So actually, yeah, you think Powell might come up tonight. That might happen. FYI, to remind everybody, we'll do this for about 20 minutes to half an hour here, and then we're going to move over to Odyssey. I don't have the streams quite set up yet, so it'll take a couple of minutes to get switched over to there. Let me make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about. I'm going to grab my Odyssey channel real quick, and I'll put the link in the chat so we can go from there. If you're not signed up with me on Odyssey, please go ahead and do so. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Bing, bong, channel, thing. There you go. All right. So, yes. So let's get started and let's talk about what happened today. It's actually really quite an immense thing, I think, right? So today, during the apparently the CARES Act congressional hearings, both Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell, FOMC Chair Jerome Powell, spoke today, and Powell, somewhere right around 10:35 or so this morning, kind of let it slip that, well, you know, we got to stop thinking about inflation being transitory. And I was like, huh. And then I looked over. And I went over and I looked at the markets. I was like, oh my God, that's cool. There goes that changes everything. Because I've been saying for months that at some point, Powell, you know, they were going to have to 86 this idea of transitory inflation, because that's the one thing that's been keeping the markets buoyant, or, you know, just caught in its current trading range. Now I'm talking about currencies, equities, bonds, everything. And none of us, you know, who are serious students of any of this, I honestly thought that that was, you know, a reasonable assumption. But the truth is that, you know, across the board, that was the lie that everybody wanted to believe. And so the markets continue to believe a lie until it's unavoidable, until finally somebody, in this case, the Federal Reserve Chair, finally just said, look, we were wrong. Inflation is not transitory. It's structural. Now, this is nothing new to me or to anybody who's been following my work for the last 6 months, and say, I've been saying we're going to have cost push inflation structurally inbound for, like, you know, the last year and a half. And I'm absolutely right. So Powell comes out and says that today, and by doing that, he completely blew up the Omicron vid 9/11 narrative that, oh my God, we all have to, like, lock down now because there's a new variant of COVID and it's called Omicron and it's going to kill us all. And that's going to turn out to be like a bad fucking cold. And basically, Stoyanovich, I think that's the right way of looking at it. Powell came out today and said, look, the emperor has no clothes, right? There's no, inflation is structural. We're going to have to taper QE. We're going to have to raise rates. And the market finally believes him. And I think that's ultimately the way we have to look at this. And for the first time in a while, reality finally set in for a lot of traders. And so all of a sudden, those who were in the markets, because they thought, yeah, the central banks have always got our backs, finally had to like get that out of their head. Now, I think that is a temporary thing. But it's very important what this signifies. It signifies a number of things. And we'll get to most of them later on when we get into the Odyssey stream. But it signifies that, one, Powell is in control of the Federal Reserve. Okay. It does not mean that there's not going to be no more infinite growth. Growth is a thing that happens because we apply ourselves through time. It has nothing to do with this concept that, well, it's a finite planet and we can't infinitely grow. Well, relative to the amount of resources that we exploit, relative to the bounty that is this planet, fuck, it might as well be infinite. And technology will can always outstrip our ability to exploit what's out there. So that argument about, well, we can't, it's a finite planet, so we can't have infinite growth, is just bullshit. It's a bad Malthusian argument. It's one of those things that sounds good, but it's really dumb. You know, it sounds smart, but it's really fucking stupid. And it's like the whole concept is, and that whole idea is behind the premise of Davos and the Great Reset, and, you know, wanting to kill off most of humanity and all the rest of it. It's just bullshit. So it's an idea born of people without imagination who, because they can't conceive of a future that would allow for people to come up with new ideas and create new value, must mean that we can't. Eventually, they can't see it, then it can't be true. Which is bullshit. Like, you know, it's not a solipsistic. It is a solipsistic universe, but it's not either, because we all live in our own little solipsisms, and, you know, we all live in our own little personal echo chambers. And just because you can't conceive of that reality doesn't mean that reality isn't possible. Just that simple. All right. That being said, when you get Powell coming out and saying inflation is going to run hot structurally going forward because there's no way around that, then all of a sudden, all the money that's been printed is now a problem. And all the spending that's on the table is a problem. And it means that Build Back Better is done here in the United States. It means that and even if they get it through, it will get either neutered or overturned for all intents and purposes at the midterm elections in November. I've been arguing for the past 6 months that Jerome Powell is part of a, faction, cabal, whatever you want to call it, of people who finally saw the totality of the plan that Klaus Schwab and company had put together and said, fuck all that. Fuck a whole lot of that. Like, that's not going to happen. And once that became embedded somewhere within Fed monetary policy, and then by extension into political reality on Capitol Hill, embedded in the minds of enough people on Capitol Hill, all it took was the delaying tactics of people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to delay these pieces of legislation, these destructive pieces of legislation, and push it past the point where Biden had to make a decision on re-upping Powell or not as Fed chairman. It was very obvious that there was a coup attempt against Powell, which he successfully fought off. And then over the weekend, I note a couple of things that really caught my attention. And the first was the outing was the leak, or somebody finally putting 2 + 2 together and doing the barest minimum of journalism to find out that Lael Brainerd, who is Obama's choice to replace Powell to pave the way for MMT and the central bank digital dollar and the end of the commercial banking system here in the United States, is married to Biden's Asian czar. I don't remember his name, and I don't really give a fuck because he's a traitor, who's deeply embedded with the freaking Chinese. And so, that just doesn't come out now after Biden, finally bows to the political reality that he can't get Brainerd through a Senate confirmation hearing. And then after having gotten, 4 scalps on the FOMC board, and then for that to come out means that there's a good chance Brainerd's not going to get confirmed as vice chair. Just because Biden's nominated her doesn't mean that she's going to make it through. Because all it takes, if the GOP is dead set against her, all it takes is either Manchin or Sinema to go, you know what? No. I'm just not a commie. I'm sorry. And I think that's part of what's been going on here. That enough people within Congress finally looked up and went, okay, I don't give a fuck how fat the goddamn envelope is. There's no amount of money that is worth doing this to the world. I'm sorry. So it was just, and so you have that. And then there was the Goldman investor note about Omicron, where Goldman was like, what the fuck is going on here? Why weren't we informed about what you people were going to plan on doing? Which is basically what that investor note said. And I can tell you that those things are indicative of something different happening, something different at play. And I really have to tip my hat to people who finally just decided to stand up and go, you know what? No. Like, the Federal Reserve is not the central bank of the world. The United States is not Europe's fucking piggy bank. And we fought a revolution 250 years ago, 45 years ago or whatever, to get ourselves out from underneath you fucking arrogant European colonialists. And fuck you, we don't want to be, we're not going to do what you tell us to do. Like, it's just that simple. We're, going to rage against the colonial machine. Fuck you. And I seriously believe that that's what's been going on here. And I described this months ago by saying, look, Powell comes from a private equity background, right? He's not some ivory tower egghead from Harvard like Bernanke or Yellen. He's not trained in that econometric Keynesian Samuelsonian claptrap. He's a guy who was, who comes from a background of taking equity stakes and making strategic investments in projects that are successful. And his friends are all of that same idiom, the same ilk. So it makes, I've never for once ever thought that Powell was just going to go along to get along. I just never believed that. It just always seemed dumb to me. And when I saw him go after Christine Lagarde back in May about coordinating global monetary policy for climate change, and he kind of looked at her and went, fuck you, you're a goddamn appointed lawyer by some fucking German eugenicist. Fuck you, I ain't doing that. I have a mandate here to take care of Americans first. Fuck you. And Lagarde got pissed off at him. And he's like, I don't give a shit. I'm more powerful than you are. Fuck off. So, we've been talking about this for a long time now. When you pressure a system hard enough, when you push people to the brink or to the limit, that's when you find out what they're made of, right? That's when you're going to get a snapback reaction based on the pressure you put people under. You're going to get catastrophic results eventually. And so To me, Powell's been clearly draining liquidity from the global financial markets for months now. And yeah, is some of the fallout from this furthering the plans of some of the bad people? Sure. Is Turkey in trouble because of this? Absolutely. Is the Russian ruble trading at some ungodly? Actually, it's where the weak ruble is actually working to the Russians' advantage. But I mean, he knows that to win this fight, he has to break the fucking European Union. And I'm sorry, but I've been saying for months that eventually Powell is going to turn around and he's going to be willing to just take the 15 or 20 or 25% haircut off the friggin' financial markets and crash fucking Europe. It's if he doesn't do that, then everything that is all the ideas that I've been promulgating, that I've been talking about, trying to create a new Iron Curtain across Eastern Europe, from Warsaw to Kiev to Istanbul, to bottle up the Russians, leave all these poison pills and these fucking minefields on the Russians' border, all these failed states, right? The potential for a war between the United States and China over basically Taiwan and poor diplomacy. Like, when you look at the totality of what would occur here if the Federal Reserve doesn't stand up and just say, okay, no, we're going to exert hybrid war pressure on Europe because that's what needs to happen to stop this. I think there's enough people who are, one, motivated by enlightened self-interest enough, i.e. many people on Wall Street who don't, and in the private equity arena, and just a lot of really, sorry, but just a lot of really fucking rich people who don't want to lose access to their, they don't want to lose access. They don't want to see the commercial banking system go away. Somebody on my Slack server made one of my patrons on the Slack server made a really, really important point the other day. And I said, look, if anybody doesn't believe that, that American politics isn't driven by the local banking establishments, that congressional races are won and lost because of, who the local banks, the regional banks, back, then you don't understand American politics. It was a very astute statement. I hadn't really ever thought of it that way. But, the minute I heard that, I read that, I'm like, oh, that's so fucking right. So I really do believe that that's kind of what was, what's at play here. And at some point, all the local commercial banks, all your local credit unions and regional bank managers, and, because they're the ones who give out all the friggin' local construction loans. They're the ones that they're the ones that are financing the new strip mall. They're the ones that are financing, the bridges getting rebuilt, or whatever projects going on in the local community. It's how the new pier is getting built off of Cedar Key, for example, or whatever. I mean, pick whatever local project you want. Who financed that fucking Denny's that just went in, right? Who financed that new Hampton Inn and Suites downtown? Like, those are all financed by your local banks. And if you think that you're going to cut those people out of the American society and roll all that power up to the Federal Reserve, with Jerome Powell as chairman, who understands that this relationship is endemic, is what built America. Not the big fucking money center bank fucking assholes over Goldman and Morgan and BofA and Wells and the rest of them. Citibank, fuck those guys. Those are the guys who fucking ruined this country. But the local regional banks, they're the ones that, did all the friggin' hard work to get this country built. You cross them and forget it. You don't have a country anymore. And, it's almost as important as the fucking border itself, right? So, at some point, someone had to finally just say that's enough. And I can tell you that the Democrats are scared shitless because they know goddamn well that once this cat was out of the bag, they weren't going to see a dollar from these people anymore. So. Yeah. Powell was recommended to Trump by someone, probably, I'm not even sure who, but whoever nominated him, hey, look, Trump didn't like Powell because Trump's a shitbag mercantilist and, easy money guy. This is, again, part of the reason why I'm glad Donald Trump is for the most part out of the fucking picture, because Donald Trump he ain't fucking bright, guys. Okay? He's just not. So there it is. So that's the big thing. I can tell you that I've been cackling all fucking afternoon because this is the fucking best news I've heard in years. I mean, this is right up there with that day that I had my geopolitical awakening, which was the day I walked out of the Sunday morning. walking out of my kitchen with a cup of coffee in my hand, and my wife was at the computer and reading the Drudge Report, and she said, the British Parliament just went against David Cameron about assisting Obama in invading Syria. And I literally stopped dead in my tracks and almost dropped my cup of coffee. I said, suck what? The British Parliament the Tory-controlled British Parliament just went against the Prime Minister on an American invasion in the Middle East? What? Like, I couldn't even parse the fucking words. Is Mnuchin that recommended Powell? Thank you. Hello, puppy. I have a different opinion of Steve Mnuchin now than I did before. And that moment honestly started us on the path we're on today. I mean, without that happening, Syria falls. NATO moves into Syria. The Russians don't intervene a couple of years, 18 months later. And we're not where we are today. Okay? I mean, because right after that, Putin then negotiates the deal for Assad to get rid of his chemical weapons. And then, Obama takes revenge on him by trying to, with the Maidan in February of 2014 during the Olympics. And then Putin turns around and, allows the Crimeans to vote to leave Ukraine and become part of the Russian Federation, and then and then South Stream gets destroyed, and blah blah blah, and all this shit that we've been talking about for the last 8 years now wouldn't have happened if the British Parliament hadn't stood up against their Prime Minister, and it's what killed David Cameron as Prime Minister. It wasn't Brexit that killed his government; it was that, because everything was downstream of that. It created the opportunity for the Russians to come in and start changing the geopolitical map. When somebody finally stood up and that's when, when Putin stood up and said, okay, no, that's enough. We're saying no. Putin saying no in Syria gave everybody else spine to start saying no around the world. And then it just has, so. Keep going. The Russians had to let Libya get rolled. They weren't ready for the confrontation yet. That's the problem, Rick Farmer. Now, Rick Farmer said, I couldn't believe the Russians let Libya get rolled. I'm like, they weren't in a position to do so. Remember, in 2008, right, during the 08 war in Georgia and South Ossetia, Putin's made it abundantly clear since then. He's like, dude, we literally mobilized every fucking soldier we could. And the best we could do was push back the Georgian army at that point. The Russian army in 2008 was not capable of any kind of force projection into Libya. I don't know why they voted against it, Club 365 Club Card. I have no idea. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I just know that they did. I mean, obviously they were told. Obviously there was enough of them that said, "No, this is bullshit. This is not our fight. We don't need to be in Syria." So Jonathan, I don't give a fuck about Donald Trump. So Jonathan says, look, he coming back in 2024, Trump has much stronger backing electorally and can actually win the popular vote by a substantial margin. I don't give a fuck. Trump is deficient and shouldn't be president again. Trump will get us into a fucking war with China. That's exactly the situation I don't want. Like, this is the kind of thinking that needs to end. Okay? And I think a fucking potato can run for president under the GOP banner and beat the Democrat in 2024. It doesn't have to be Trump. Trump will motivate a lot of MAGA-tars, but I'm sorry, that's retarded. I'm sorry, that's just like fucking first year political analysis. It's not really all that interesting. And it's bad because Trump has already proven that he's deficient at a personal defect level to be president and do the job that needs to be done. Okay? I seriously don't think Trump would be a good choice in 2024. I'm happy to be wrong. But after watching him for 4 years, Trump on the Lolita Express. Exactly. Doesn't matter who in 2024. We're so fucking far away from 2024, we shouldn't even be discussing it. It's not important. Dudes, we can barely, you guys are talking about electoral strategy for 2024. For fuck's sake, we could be in fucking World War III by the end of Q2. Okay? These people are trying to foment a fucking war between the Russians and Ukrainians, which could literally touch off World War fucking III. And you're worried about Trump winning the popular vote in 2024? Talk about having your priorities ass fucking backwards. Christ on a fucking crutch. I thought we were professionals here. God damn, that pisses me off. All right, we're 28 minutes in. I'm moving over to Odyssey in a few minutes. We'll continue this over there. I will put the link in the chat again for anybody who is it's dumb. Don't spitball about 2024. We have much bigger problems than 2024. And anybody talking about DeSantis, probably right. All right, let's start packing up, moving our asses over to Odyssey. For those of you who aren't sure, the link is odyssey.com/@tom.luongo:1. It's not hard. You can just search for me on Odyssey and you'll find me. There'll be a link stream up in a couple of minutes and I'll post it on my Twitter feed. All right. And there we are. So I will leave this open on YouTube and for people to find. We'll link it one more time. There you go. And I'm out. So you guys take care. We'll be back in, 5 to 7 minutes whenever Odyssey will confirm the stream. And we'll get started. You guys be well. You take